All right, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. I'm joined today by IFBB Pro and fellow Canadian, I might add, Joe Seeman. Joe, what's going on, man? Thanks for coming on.
Having me. Happy to, jump on podcasts like this any chance I get. It's always good to be able to give people, more of an insight into, what goes on behind the scenes, I guess, for, an IFBB pro or any athlete in general, and kind of get to know them a little more on a personal level that they wouldn't normally see on social media or competing on stage and everything.
Yeah, I think there can be a little bit of a disconnect as to what people will perceive on certain aspects of social media as compared to doing something like this. So it's definitely a lot of value. And that's one thing that I've been finding from a lot of these interviews is it allows pros like yourself to come on and give your perspective. There's really no confusion by the end of it, and if there is, then everyone always lets us know in the comments. So
No, that's true. Everybody always, if they have extra questions, I'm sure they'll put those below if we don't cover everything.
yeah, most definitely. So I actually started following you pretty closely shortly after I started this channel. It was leading up to the New York Pro, and that was a fantastic showing for you, man. You must have been really happy with that. I mean, the conditioning was there. You really had that balance that I didn't see from some of the previous years of you competing. Like, how was that experience for you for the New York Pro?
New York Pro honestly was a really good experience for me. So like kind of backtracking a little bit from that, the previous year I definitely had a really off showing when I only did the Toronto Pro in 2022. And kind of the reason for that was because like 2021 I did a few shows, and the last show was the Toronto Pro, but they had it in December, and then they put it back to when they usually have it the following year in June. And so I was, kind of running off a high of placing third at the Toronto Pro in 2021. So I wanted to get right back into prep, which was kind of a very, ego-based decision because I should have gave my body more of a break. And so going into that prep, I was just kind of like mentally and physically burnt out. And it ended up in like pretty much like my worst placing in a few years, like on a stage. I got like seventh in a lineup where I could have potentially won. So that one kind of, it took a lot of like reflection, like after that for me personally. And like I had to like kind of, sit back and reflect on like what I wanted to do. Like, how was I going to approach to come back and make sure that I came back and made a significant improvement that people, were like looking at me and recognizing me again. So that's when I teamed up with Justin Harris kind of towards the end of 2022. And we started working together going into that prep. And honestly, like it was like having that like kind of second set of eyes and someone like Justin who's been in the industry for over 20 years, like very knowledgeable when it comes to nutrition and everything. So with his help, honestly, like I think that's kind of what helped me create that peak for New York, because it was the first time in a couple of years that I kind of gave over the reins to somebody else to dial me into a show. And with that, I was able to like have probably one of the best peaks I've ever had, in regards to like being in condition, having the size, the fullness, and just like everything kind of lined up perfectly for that. And I was definitely I was very happy with that result. I know I ended up fourth. I'm sure I could have, if I had had a better presentation at the show, I probably could have edged up to like second or third maybe, but I was still very happy because it was more so just the fact that people were like, like, holy crap, like where'd he come from? That was the kind of thing that made me kind of realize I'm like, okay, you're not you're not as far off from getting to one of those top spots as you think.
I think you were right there. I think you're absolutely right. It was most definitely the best showing that I saw from everything that I looked at you previously. But one of the things that you kind of strike me as someone that maybe had a hard time handing over the reins to somebody else when it comes to coaching. What was that something that was difficult for you?
It was because in the past, like I've had a few coaches in the past, and like some experiences were okay, and some were not as good. But I feel like it was just I feel like a lot of guys in the pro leagues, they end up like leaning towards who are like the quote unquote gurus or the most popular guys. And a lot of these guys that are, the quote unquote gurus, I just say quote unquote because I think there's a lot of guys that are not as well known that are very knowledgeable too. And so like these guys, I find those guys like when they work with someone like me who's not necessarily, one of the top Olympian guys, they wouldn't give you as much attention. You know what I mean? So I had experienced that before with other coaches. So I was more picky about like I pretty much was like, if I'm going to work with somebody, I'm going to work with somebody that I'm probably going to continue to work with until I'm done competing. So like I wanted to make sure I pick somebody that I'm like, I kind of mesh with not only like as an athlete, but as like just on a personal level too. And that's like what I have with Justin because, he's someone that I can, talk to just like a friend. And like at the same time, like he can help me dial into the show. So it's like, I like that too, because, there's more of a, there's more, I don't know the word for it. There's a better relationship, I think, in that regard. You have a better relationship there than just him being like, here, do this. It's kind of like we go back and forth. And because he knows obviously like I've been able to coach myself successfully for other preps. So we're able to go back and forth, but at the same time, I'm totally comfortable when it comes to like, especially the last few weeks, just be like, yeah, just tell me what to do. And unless I think it's absolutely insane, then I'm just gonna do it.
Yeah, it takes the thinking out of it. That's what I hear from pretty much everyone out there for the last few weeks. Just you have somebody that you trust, you let them do their thing, and the end result speaks for itself. So you've been working with him for I guess just over a year now. It would have been.
Yep, yeah, just over a year. Like currently, I kind of when I'm not in contest prep, I sort of do my own thing with the same sort of guideline that he goes about things with the nutrition, kind of with like carb cycling and everything. But yeah, like we'll probably start full tilt again like in January, just after like kind of like the holiday season's over. But yeah, like basically I still follow the same concepts that he kind of preaches. And then like once I'm like, okay, like once I've decided on a show and everything, then like I kind of just like we get going like kind of going into that, going into that prep.
Have you decided on a show yet? That's one good question.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have decided for sure like what I'm gonna do going into 2024 for my first show.
Okay, okay. Now you don't got to say what show. That's fine if you don't want to. But I'm wondering, do you look at a show based on where you are currently standing with your physique, with your nutrition, how you're feeling, things like that? Or do you base it more on the playing field where you might see other guys competing, where you think you may strategically be able to compete? Is it a geographical thing, competing overseas versus staying here in Canada or USA? Is there any factors like that?
I think you definitely factor a little bit of everything into like what shows you're going to choose because now that I've had more experience like competing at the pro level and I've kind of had a few years competing in the States or whether it's overseas kind of like in Europe or doing the shows here in Canada, that kind of gives you an idea of like okay like strategically based on like the location but not just that but based on like the timing of the show, comparatively to like when the Olympia is going to be and kind of being able to time it with your body in regards to, okay, I want to be able to, peak for this show and bring my best, but then, ideally to win and then, qualify for the Olympia. So you're kind of thinking along those lines, but then you're thinking, okay, like I do this show, like, is there a couple other shows that I may want to do afterwards too? So you're kind of, you're being a little bit strategic in that regard. I would say in regards to like who would show up, I don't really put too much thought into that because it's always random. You never really know. Like I've had shows where, I've done and like you thought it was going to be a few, like a not very many guys, and then there's 20 something guys on stage. And then there's other shows where you're like, oh, I think it would be a little more competitive. And then there's like 10 guys. So you're like, it doesn't really, I don't really think that's as strategic. I think the only way that can be strategic is if you're like starting to prep and then you're just seeing how like the shows go and then you're trying to like jump into one that you think no one's going to show up at, but even then you could get surprised and then like someone that's like a top 10 Olympia guy shows up and then it's a lot more challenging, so I think that part I don't really worry about as much as like the timing of the show with like kind of where my body's at. So I kind of base it off that, like so I can be strategic to get that qualification.
Okay, so and you are going after the qualification this year. That's the end goal.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So right now you're sitting at, I believe it's 292 pounds.
Yep. Yeah, I've been around this weight for a little bit now. Because like in all honesty, like my last show I did was would have been the Toronto Pro. So back in June. I did like I was contemplating doing another show later in the year, but just for like personal reasons, I ended up just like deciding not to. So yeah, the majority of the time I've been more in like an off season for me. So I just have been giving my body more of like a break from things and like just being able to focus on the food and the training. And I've been able to keep my composition decent at this weight. So I know once I do start to kind of ramp things up going in the new year, that I'll be able to see a very good response because I remember like for example 2022 before I started with Justin, I had like kind of done the same thing and given my body a pretty good break. And then once we got things started, then going to that prep, I definitely was able to get that new level with my physique. And I definitely feel like I'll be able to get to another new level by having that like a good reset like that going into this year.
You're able to maintain this 292 with very minimal, I don't want to say effort, because I know your training is pretty intense, but when it comes to your supplementation and the food being spot on, of course, this is not something that's overly, difficult for you to maintain. So going into a prep, being able to ramp up even that much further is going to be an advantage for you this year.
Oh, big time. Yeah, because like everything's fresh. And like you said, like, I keep the food and the training hard, like well, training hard and the food on point. So like, adding in like extra, supplementation, whatever, going into a prep, it's literally just like you start to see your body sort of, mutate in a sense and like getting that big composition change. So for me, like I know like I could potentially be like I could foresee myself being bigger and better composition than I've been any other year, just based on like how I'm holding at this weight. Because just a comparison to like a year ago or just over a year ago, I was probably roughly 7 pounds lighter than I was like around like in the same point, like in that off season where I haven't really been, doing much of any supplementation. So I know just based on that comparison that I'm definitely holding more tissue already, and my body feels pretty much the best I've ever felt. Like my joints and everything feel better than I did when I was like 25, 26, and I'm 31 now. So like I feel like my body's ready to push hard.
I mean, in the gym, you've been pushing hard. I saw you do 6.5 plates deadlifting, and dude, I don't think those plates even touched the ground. Like that was extreme control. Those plates didn't touch the ground, did they?
No, no, yeah, because that was like an RDL. So I was those are one of my favorites for like hamstrings and glutes, low back training. And I honestly like I don't do them like every week. Like I had been using the Smith machine for a while, and then I just switched back to the barbell like about 4 weeks ago, and I was able to go right into doing like 6 plates right away, and then a couple weeks later I was able to do 6.5, and like it's I think the most I've ever done with that is about 7 plates aside. Um, so yeah, my strength, like when it comes to deadlifting, it's one of my strongest like movements when it comes to pulling movements, especially hamstrings. Like I got some like I don't know, my hamstrings are just ridiculously strong, I think. So I'm able to pull a lot of weight.
Dude, that's a ridiculous amount of weight, especially for just where you're at right now, maintaining. Like that's nuts. Do you handle your own training, or is that something where you consult with Justin as well?
Yeah, I do my own training. Justin mainly he mainly controls the nutrition. Like when it comes to that, that's like the big thing he does. And I feel like that's like his niche, when it comes to like nutrition and everything, because he can tell but just by looking at somebody like how much more carbs you need like when you're carbing up, and it's like very detailed and specific. And even in like the off season or whatever, like the adjustments with nutrition I think is the biggest thing that he brings to the table for me. And like that's the thing that I like the most, because like training I feel like is for me anyways, like I feel like the training aspect is easier for me to control, because like you're going to know your body in regards to like what exercises kind of work best, and after you've been doing it for over a decade. But when it comes to nutrition, I always find like it's more, you're always going to think you need more food or less food than you actually need, I find, as the individual. But when someone else is looking at you objectively, I feel like they can, kind of pinpoint, no, this is how much you actually need, and like how much is actually going to take to, like, whether it's trying to, put on a bit of muscle or lose body fat, and it's a little more of a fine line there, as opposed to you being like, no, I think I need a cheat meal, or no, I'm just going to eat no carbs, like, just going to too much of an extreme. And them being more like exactly on point with what you need brings that, that ideal look.
Yeah, you can feel out the training, right? And that's completely within your control, and within your ability to feel that and adjust as needed, right down to the last rep. But feeling the food is a whole different thing altogether. So yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I just recently changed up my training because I was kind of at a standstill. I really was focusing on trying to improve my training for diving purposes. So for me, a regular dive could be anywhere from 2 to 2.5 hours this time of year. In the summer, it could be 3 or more. For some of my guys that are diving a lot more than I am, it's a little bit more. But no, what I was doing was I was trying to train for maybe an hour and a half and then do cardio 5 times a week, and really trying to push the reps, get up to 20, 25, 30 reps for sets to warm up, and then start going 20, 15, 12, 10, and then drop sets and supersets, things like that. But I found that for muscle growth purposes, which is still a goal, I wasn't really making the progress that I was looking for. I just recently, like within the last week, I changed up to going back to, 10 to 12 reps and just really pushing some more weight. And it's made an extreme difference, even in the last week, to how I feel. It's been really, really good that way. So being able to make those adjustments yourself when you've been training for so long is a key factor in being able to progress. And that's something that I know that your approach to training is very, very specific in how you measure progress. I mean, progress is not necessarily just, muscle growth is obviously the number one factor, but the speed in which you do your reps. I've heard you speak about it on some of your social media outlets. It's not just about putting more weight on the bar. It's having better control, feeling that better control. That could be a factor when it comes to measuring your progress as well. So, what factors have you really seen yourself making improvements in when it comes to your training lately?
One of the biggest things I kind of changed, especially over the past year, was how I train legs, like my approach to training legs, and like it kind of trickles into, like, I guess, like training in general. But I really did like put an emphasis more on like not trying to get, quote unquote, more weight on the bar or whatever, with leg training. I actually like kind of scaled the weight down a bit and just really started to focus on like extreme control and range of motion when I'm doing like everything, whether it's like, a squat, a leg extension, a leg press, like whatever it is. I was really trying to maximize, the range of motion and where the tension is on the muscle. So I'm really trying to target my quads and making sure the target is on the quads, and like just really controlling that. Because what I was finding, kind of like last year and like probably last couple of years up until this year, was I'd get a lot more knee pain. And then like the knee pain would just be like not as much when I was training, like some of it when I was training, but it would be afterwards. My knees would just be like killing me, like the night after a leg day. So that's why like I kind of made this adjustment, based on like just like kind of just from like seeing, I don't know if you know, her name's forget her last name now, but her name's Danny. She's one of Justin's clients. She's actually a pro in women's physique, and she's really smart too. Like she does like coaching and everything, and she was like kind of like posting about this in regards to like going really slow on eccentrics when it comes to leg training, and how it can actually like kind of reverse knee pain in a sense. And that's kind of like what had happened to me from doing this. And I've been able to build my strength back up from kind of like what I was doing before, but like with way more control. And I can hack squat like 7 plates now with no knee wraps, anything. And like I have no issue doing that with like, and no pain in my knees, which is crazy. And I think that like kind of control is enabling me to like still train very hard, but without the pain. And the same thing is kind of translated into like my upper body training, where it's like I've focused way more on control and contracting what I'm actually trying to target, as opposed to trying to, maximize how much lifting or focusing on, oh, I did, 12 reps on this last week, so I really got to get an extra couple reps this week. I'm just like only really focusing on that in the sense of, if I did 12 reps last week and I do 13 with the exact same tempo, then that's okay, that's good. But if I'm doing an extra rep, but I'm speeding up the tempo, then that's not really going to be effective. So my focus isn't really on like trying to beat last week. My focus is like making sure that I'm putting everything into each session. And for me, the progress is like how my physique looks, not necessarily, what my logbook says on paper. You know what I mean? So like I've kind of focused less on what it says on paper and more on like how I look, how I feel, and how my body's responding.
It really takes a certain mindset to be able to measure progress in such a way, because there's a lot of pros out there that I see as well that just, if they don't put that weight onto the bar that they did last week, it can really mess with their head. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you about as well, not just in the gym, but in general. I see you posting a lot, and I've heard you speak in the past about a specific mindset when it comes to stoicism. Now, that's something that I've read into myself to try and implement in my own day-to-day life, just to be able to have that mindset, to keep yourself on kind of a level playing field. Do you find that that stoicism is something that you can adapt to your training in order to continue to make that progress, or is that just something that you have outside of the gym?
No, I definitely think it plays a role in like everything, you know what I mean? Because one of the biggest things I find with like stoicism in general is just like kind of separating, it's a few things, like separating ego for one, and like kind of realizing that ego is like the enemy. In my opinion, ego is the enemy of progress. So like I used to be like that, especially, I was like always wanted to be this, like, you're bodybuilding, but you always want to be like the strongest guy. You want to be, you're competitive. So it's like that always is in the back of your head, that like you want to be lifting more. You think that's like intuitively, you think that's the way to progress in it, but it's really just your ego talking, because you want to like, you want people to be like, oh wow, look how much he's lifting. It's so impressive, this and that. But like I've gotten to a point where I really don't care about what people think. So I'm just doing what I know is going to be effective for me to get that end result. And that's all that matters. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care if someone looks at me in the gym and they're like, wow, he's so big, like, and he's doing this, like, that's not impressive. I'm like, well, I'm not a power lifter or a strongman, so I don't really need to focus on that. And then the same thing with like just focusing on what you can control. So for me, I feel like that definitely applies to training and everyday life, because there's so many little things that pop up out of nowhere. Like you could be, getting ready to go to the gym, and then your dog decides to puke on the floor and you have to like clean that up. And then, something else happens, like your car gets a flat tire and oh, I missed a meal now. And it's just like things sort of add up. And it's like, I find without that stoic type of mindset, you let those things sort of add up and drive you crazy. And then you just like, you're kind of not letting yourself kind of flow as you should. And it kind of takes over and consumes you. And you're too worried about kind of like exterior forces that you can't control, versus like, if you're just focusing on the things in your control, you're like, okay, this sucks, but I can adjust and, kind of continue on from there and just like make things still work. Like, whether I get to the gym half an hour later or not, I'm still going to get that training session in. I'm still going to give it 100%. Things aren't perfect, but, I make it work based on like kind of what's in front of me. And I feel like having that mindset definitely makes me feel, a lot more grounded. And a lot of people always say I'm kind of, you know, some people think you're it's like you're not
Old.
competitive, kind of, you're like mellow, or yeah, you got an old soul or whatever. But for me, it's just like I'm still like very, very competitive. I just know how to have that emotional control to not let like the emotion kind of respond to a situation, as opposed to like thinking about it objectively and just like, you know, separating the ego and emotion from it, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. One of the other things I've been exploring in the past, I'd say 2 years, is the approach of There's a master, a Shaolin master in who runs a school in Germany, Shaolin Temple, Europe. His name is Master Shiheng Yi. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but a lot of the aspects of Stoicism you'll find within the practices that they have within Buddhist temples. Buddhism and Taoism. Like you said, things can come up in everyday life, and they do. But at the end of the day, the amount of weight that you decide to put into them when it comes to emotional weight and your physical reaction, perhaps, it could be both, is totally dependent on you. And being able to control that will allow you to, again, approach things with, and I think this is more of what you're saying, be able to approach things with more of a clearer mindset, more of a level perspective, and not just that, but not let things ruin your day, because your dog puking on the floor, which I've got a new puppy, and pissing in the house is really starting to piss me off, man. But I even find myself, I'm just like, okay, we're going to clean it up, and then we're going to figure out how to make this dog not fucking piss on the floor anymore. And we're going to continue on with the day, right? It's not necessarily the easiest thing to put into practice, but that's the thing, is it does take practice, just as training takes repetitive motion, right? So I find that there's a lot of correlation between those two things.
No, 100%. And it's like what you're saying. Like a lot of people, they don't really like, I think it's like it sounds cheesy when you say it, but it's like they're not really living in the moment of what they're actually doing. They're always thinking like to the past or to the future, and it's like kind of like having that like I know some people call it like a flow state sort of way of living. And it's like that doesn't mean you should never, think about the future or think about the past, but like you gotta, if the more, I think the more you embrace the present, the more you're able to kind of live with those things in regards to like kind of separating the emotion, separating the ego, and being able to like, whether it's like something, out of what you predicted for the day comes up, and like you just kind of separate that. And the same thing with training. It's like if I go to the gym and I usually have a game plan of what I'm going to train, obviously, but like, if I have to change up my exercise order because a certain machine is going to be taken, I'm not going to be like, oh no, like now I can't do this. Now it's just like the workout's ruined, because like I've had clients where they'll literally message me being like, oh, like I can't get this machine because it's taken. I'm like, just adjust, like go do the other exercise, come back and do that exercise. I'm like, you're still going to get the benefit of the exercise, whether you do it second or third. It's not going to make that drastic of a difference. Like the biggest difference is all in your head, thinking that, oh, this is so terrible, I'm not doing exactly how I planned. And it's like, well, a lot of things never go as you plan them, but being able to kind of adjust as you go and realizing that and accepting that and just kind of utilizing what you can makes a big difference.
I think you're absolutely right, and I really think it allows you to put more of an emphasis on appreciation for things as well. Yeah, that machine's gone, but at least I'm here and I can train. Those are things when it comes to stoicism. I know the reflection of such things. Memento mori is one of the big things, to appreciate each day. You will be dead someday. Make the most of it, and that's one thing. Actually, a couple of guys that I follow, the Mulligan brothers on YouTube. I don't know if you follow them. They actually have a yeah, they have a calendar that you can actually put on your wall, and it's a memento mori calendar where each week you fill in a block, and it's for a lot of people, you'd look at it, it's like, that's kind of morbid. Like, why do you keep that in your house as a reminder of death? But that's the thing, because one of these days you're not going to fill in one of those blocks, right? And that's their whole thing. But when you take it from more of a positive perspective, it really allows you to put more into each day. I mean, that's one of the things that that Buddhists wake up and consider every day they wake before they do anything, is the appreciation for the day, because someday you're not going to wake up, So I think that it does allow you to put more into it when it comes to your job or your relationships or your training or anything like that. And it's taken me quite some time to, I mean, learning about it is one thing, putting it into practice is quite another. And that's one of the reasons that I wanted to get you on to talk about this, because I know that you've actually been putting that into practice. I mean, I see you posting things from, I believe it was Seneca was one of the quotes that you were reading from a recent book. And I've read a little bit on Seneca myself. So it is things that can really, really help people.
Yeah, no, honestly, like it's funny because it was in 2020 when I first started to get more into the Stoicism mindset and just reading about it, and I started to like get really into it. One of the guys, authors that I really like is Ryan Holiday. He has a lot of books on Stoicism. One is called The Daily Stoic. It's something that I read every day. It's like a page. I post them a lot of my stories, because like for me, the one thing that I associated with is like always having like a routine in the morning, especially. So I always have a specific routine in the morning when it comes to like what I do like every morning. Regardless of what the rest of my day contains, it's like my morning routine is always consistent. And like that always includes like reading the page out of that book for the day, right? So I kind of, I get that moment where I'm just sitting there and kind of reflecting on, what I have to do for the day, and reading that passage, and like whether it's like, from Seneca or Marcus Aurelius or one of
Yep.
the other philosophers of the time. And it's like funny because like one of the tattoos I got recently is like kind of a stoicism based tattoo with a few different, it's on my forearm. I have a long sleeve on right now so you can't see it, but it has like the face of Marcus Aurelius in there. It also has like a few other like stoic like symbols there, and like I plan on like continuing with that tattoo on my forearm and just kind of making my whole forearm like all stoicism based like kind of figures on there, because like that's something that's it's been a big part of my life, especially the past like 3 4 years. So it's something I want to kind of, if I'm gonna have something that I represent, I want to like kind of have something like that on me when it comes to a tattoo, and it's something that makes a big difference in my everyday life. um but yeah, like with the readings, like I find those daily readings definitely kind of help your mindset to start the day, and then it kind of like enables you to like head into the day with a proper mindset and the gratitude and appreciation that it's like, you're not going to wake up one day, so it's like you want to appreciate every single day that you have. And I find like December is actually a month that is like kind of like a more like the in the book it's about mortality. So like all the passages in December, even though it's like a quote, it's like a holiday season, everybody's all happy about Christmas, like some of the passages are more morbid, but it's morbid in a way where it's just like it makes you like appreciate, you're like, okay, like I should appreciate what I have, and actually like live each day like like you're actually appreciating it. And like whether it's relationships, the gym, training, like whatever it is, like just like actually live in that moment, appreciate it, and enjoy it, and stop like getting sidetracked by stupid stuff on your phone half the time like some people.
We can all be guilty of that for sure, but
Oh, yeah.
it really does, like, taking it back to more of a bodybuilding perspective. Like I said, it does allow that mental clarity, and that can actually aid in being able to approach training in a certain way, measure your progress, recovery. Clear mind will really really aid in your body's recovery. If you For anybody out there that has been through an amount of stress, especially when you get down to those lower body fat percentages, I mean, it'll ruin you, and it can, and some of it is like we were saying, how much weight you're going to put into it. But once that stress hits, I mean, it's going to affect everything. But for yourself, it sounds like it really allows you, and I know it does for myself as well, to really just stay level, be able to take things as they are. It's and it's difficult to describe until you really start doing it, on a regular basis, right? But just being able to say, well, that's okay. But in some things, people would look at it and be like, I don't know how you can deal with it. My father does that to me when it comes to certain aspects of running the business, right? When things just go sideways, and they do in diving, man, they go sideways. You just be like, if that was me and I was still running the company, he'd be like, I'd be losing my mind. I mean, my father went through 2 rounds of shingles, man, from stress. Honestly, that's what it was. And I just was like, I will not allow myself to get to that point, right? And he's probably going to watch this and then call me, but it's true, right? It's all about how much weight you really want to put into it.
No, and it's true, and it's like the people around me, they can see that, and they're kind of like, they're like, how are you always so like able to remain calm in certain situations? And I'm like, it's just like it's all about like your mindset towards it, I feel. And like a lot of people, like you said, like I have the similar situation. Like my dad is definitely like a very high stress person when it comes to things. Like I can, funny story, when I was like younger, and I was like a kid and just starting to work like part-time jobs, and he was going to drive me to work. It's like if I wasn't in the car or I didn't ask him like, a day in advance to get a ride to work, he'd be like all losing it. He couldn't handle like last minute things. Um, so like, yeah, if I was like a couple minutes late, he'd just start driving and be like, make me like catch up, like start running off the car, things like that. So it's like, I definitely, from seeing like kind of like your parents, like, and things like that,
Yeah.
kind of, or people in your life, you're like, okay, you're like, that's what I don't want to respond to the situation. Like, I want to be able to be like, and mind you, I'm definitely not perfect. Stress gets to everybody at some point, but like being able to do that as much as I can on a regular basis, I think just like it makes such a big difference in my life.
How does that help you when it comes to like being backstage for competition?
Um, it definitely helps a lot. Because like I think, especially with the experience level I'm at now, I feel like, when I first became a pro, even like I think when I was backstage, you're more like almost like starstruck because you're like, wow, I'm actually here. And then you see people that like have been competing for a few years and you've like been watching and you're like, wow, like I'm competing against this guy. Holy crap. And you're kind of like, it's almost like you're in awe of where you're at. And you're like kind of seeing what everybody else is doing and getting that sort of like, oh, they're doing that. Oh man, maybe I should do that. Like maybe I should be eating that. Maybe I should be pumping up now, like whatever it is. Versus like, and that was like kind of like just when I started to get into stoicism, I feel. And then flash forward to like, the most recent year, I feel like I'm much more laid back backstage, like to the point where I was like literally just doing what I want in a sense. Like, and like I remember when I did New York, I was definitely very, very, very laid back for that show going into like going on stage. I was in a very good mindset, like to the point where I was like, I kept going back to like my food when they were telling us to line up because I wanted to make sure I had enough like just before I went on stage. And like the guy kept yelling at me to come back, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I'm coming, I'm coming. And it's like, so I was literally just like, I was in my own world there. Like I was just like living it and just enjoying it, embracing it. Cause I knew like it was one of those things where it's just like I was backstage and like I know you can't really get a good quality look at yourself, but I knew I could just tell by the way I felt and the way I could like from what I could see, I was like, okay, like I'm like my body's ready for this. Like I'm gonna look the best I've ever looked. And it's just a matter of like kind of going out there and doing it. So I was just, really embracing the moment and just like very, very calm for the whole process.
And like I said, I think that's part of why your physique showed up the way that it did on stage. Dude, the conditioning was insane at that New York. Like insane, man. Like do you really think that there's a level of improvement that you could have when it comes to your conditioning in any aspect of your physique moving forward, or was that like what was the plan when it came to improvements for the next show? Like what is it that you want to do better?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I want to do better, because like I spoke with, because I did like, for example, like this is actually a good example of like, a situation where I did let the stress kind of get to me is because 2 weeks later I did Toronto Pro, and I knew
Yeah.
going into that show, like, because it's like it's one of those shows where it's like it's very close to home for me. I know a lot of people that would be there personally, and it's kind of like I put more pressure on myself in regards to like I need to do really well. I need to kind of look even better than New York. And so I knew going into that show, I was like, okay, like I have definitely a very good chance of being in the mix for this show, against these other guys. Like I've competed against pretty much everybody, or most of these guys before, and like I know I can hang with them. So I knew going into it, I was like, if I can come in better than New York, I might even be able to win. So um, I was very, 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 very much like pressuring on myself, like I was starting to stress going into that show. And even like my partner, she noticed that because she saw how laid back I was going to New York, and she could see the difference. And so essentially what happened was like I was way too stressed going into prejudging that I literally couldn't hold fullness. Like I was eating the most absurd amount of food going into that show, still drinking water, everything. And I was just really flat at prejudging. And then it was like once I got the prejudging out of the way, I just like I was able to like I had to eat a lot and like drink a lot of water in between because it was only like 3 hours between. But then I basically got back just in time to get on stage because I had to get my tan touch up and then come back. And kind of long story short, I got backstage and they were like literally like everybody's lining up about to step on stage. So I had to run in, rip my clothes off, get glazed, and just like run out on stage. So it's like without any like time to even worry about anything. I just went out there, and then after I ended up placing fifth, and like which I obviously could have done better, but I was just off at prejudging. So that's kind of a lot of your score gone. But getting to talk to Tyler Mannion after the show, he came up to me and he's like, man, he's like, if you would have looked like how you did at finals at prejudging, it would have been a way different story. He's like, just focus on, bringing up your chest a bit. And he's like, really control that midsection between poses. He's like, you have all the muscle you need, the conditioning's there. He's like, that's just the main thing he told me to focus on. So, and I know that because I know once I kind of get if I get a little bit anxious on stage, I start to breathe more through my stomach. So
Yeah.
that's one of my main things I've been focusing on, is really focusing on my core control and focusing on getting my midsection in as tight as humanly possible going into this season. And I definitely feel like my core is like the best it's been, like that I've been at this size. So I know going into prep, I'm at a better starting point than I was for last prep with that. Because I focus way more on the core training and trying to improve my chest too. So those are the areas I really wanted to improve. Conditioning, I feel like the thing with conditioning is like, when it comes to that, like it's give take, because like you want to be able to have for me, it's like I want the best possible look on stage, which is going to be a combination of the conditioning and the size and the fullness. So I feel like New York was the best example of that, but I do still feel like I can improve on that look. And the biggest thing I feel like improvement wise is like the presentation of it. And I feel like that's something that will be different for me this year, because I did start to work with opposing coach going into those shows last year, and that definitely helped. But like now going into this year, I'll be able to work with them even more and have more time with that, and we'll be able to kind of like perfect the look when I do step on stage next. So like I feel like the posing and the presentation is going to be the aspect that is going to be the next level that kind of pushes me up. Obviously, I still feel like overall I'll be better. But I really feel like it's the presentation aspect that I'm going to be like showing the next level with this year.
Who are you working with as opposing coach?
His name's Antoine. On Instagram. It's High Top Hamlet.
Okay.
He's actually like I don't know if you've probably heard of Pure Muscle Fitness.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he does it there. He does the posing coaching there. So anytime I live about 5 hours away, so anytime I get the chance, I'd go down there when I was in prep and do like some posing sessions with him. And like he is very like different than any posing coach I ever worked with before. Like I worked with other coaches with posing, and a lot of them it's usually on a video call, and they're kind of just like telling you to do a few different things, but it's like not really that helpful. He's like literally there in person, like you know touching everything, like making sure you do things, change it up, and then he's like literally takes the shirt off and starts like posing with you and like doing it with you. So it's like very hands-on, very like he's like hyping you up, getting you like into it, and like works you like for over an hour straight posing. So I found that made a huge difference, just because I found that his like especially his mindset too, and like the things you would say, like it resonated with me a lot more, just because like I feel like our mindsets were on the same level when it came to like how we're looking at things and how the mindset needs to be when you're going into like the stage and going on stage and everything. And I feel like that's the above and beyond level that I liked about him, is like because he was there for Toronto, like because like my presentation was pretty good, but like he even said, he's just like, yeah, like he's like, I could tell at prejudging you're inside your head, because like you didn't do it as good as you could have. And I was like, I knew that too, because like the presentation wasn't as good, my peak wasn't as good, and it's because I was in my head. And like you said, it's like that stress makes a huge difference in your physique in just a couple hours, especially if you get all stressed out. So knowing that going into this year and kind of knowing those errors and understanding that and like being able to work with him more, I'm just like I'm excited, I'm like really excited. Like I'm like looking at it like this. I'm like, I just want to get Christmas out of the way so I can like kind of focus on that.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. I mean, pure muscle and fitness being relatively close, I guess, is definitely an advantage. I could see you spending more time there when you get into contest prep. That's one place you see a lot of people going to now, man. I mean, Robin, I should have mentioned to you too. Robin Strain was supposed to be on with us. I didn't even say anything to you. He ended up canceling a few hours ago. I don't know what's going on, but we'll get him on again later. I wanted to let you know about that. But he's down there. Antoine Vaillant is down there. Morgan McDonald just moved from Newfoundland to train there full time. He's been training with Antoine for this upcoming for Antoine's contest prep. So yeah, I could see you spending some more time there, man. That's one place that I want to get to myself.
Yeah, no, I try and go down there. Honestly, I'm probably down that way almost every month. I go
Yeah.
down there for about a weekend, especially when I'm in prep. I'll definitely be down there for sure every few weeks. And just like for a weekend, just like to be able to, to train there. And it's like there's so many people, like you said, in the bodybuilding industry in Canada that like either train there all the time or they visit there a lot. And it's just like it's one of those spots. It's like the kind of like the mecca of bodybuilding in Canada that everybody kind of gravitates towards. And it's a good community of people. And like the owner Dorian, like I know him, and he's always welcoming for me. Like whenever I need to come and train there, and it's like no issue if I just want to pop in and train, which is amazing. And they have every piece of equipment you could possibly want when it comes to training. Like you'd have to probably spend like a month there just to try everything because they have so many different things. But no, it's a great atmosphere to be around. So I can see why someone like Morgan wanted to move out there because East Coast, there's not much going on. So, being more central, like in that area with pure muscle and everything is way more of a good structure to have for a bodybuilder, especially at the pro level.
Yeah, dude, especially where Morgan was at, like that's east of the East Coast in Newfoundland there, man. There is nothing going on for bodybuilding there. I think he's only like one of two people to even turn pro that are from Newfoundland, right? So he's up to like 321 now. Like he's just eat, sleep, train, repeat. He's looking to really make some big progress there. So you might have some stiff competition coming from him, man, if he keeps it up because he's really going up like fast.
Yeah, I know. He's a big boy. And yeah, like we think he competed against me in like Toronto this year. And I think for him it's just like yeah, like he just needs to add that size to fill out his frame because he's so tall. So like for
Yeah.
him, like he's definitely gonna continue to grow. And I think from what I've seen on social media, I don't talk to him too often, but I think he's waiting until 2025 to compete again because he wants to have a full year to kind of grow
Oh
and
shit.
those improvements. So, good for him because that's probably what it's going to take for him just to like get to that next level with his physique and have the size, especially to match the legs because he's got some pretty big legs. So he's going to probably bring up his upper body to match the legs. And then I think that'll really make a difference for him.
He had a really good showing there in Vancouver. That would have been a really good show for you, the Vancouver Pro, man. Nobody showed even there was six guys in that show. It was ridiculous, man. You probably would have did well there.
Yeah, like I contemplated doing it, but it was just it honestly just came down to some things in my personal life that I decided not to do it. And it's just like, kind of like one of those things where I'm just like, I am, bodybuilding is a profession for me, but at the same time, like, there's certain things in life where you're just like, it's like I could prep for this show, but is it really, going to take precedent over like certain things in your life that should be more important at a time? So I had to make that decision, and it's like, it was one of those ones where it's like, yeah, sitting there and watching it, I was like, damn, I was like, I've literally beaten every single one of these guys that in that show at some point. I've actually have. So it's like that one is tough, definitely tough to watch. And it was kind of one of those things where I'm just like, okay, but it's like at the same time, you're like, if I continue to improve, then like there's no reason I can't win a show. So for me, it's like you can look at it in the sense of like, damn, I could have won. But at the same time, you're like, damn, I can win. So like that's kind of the way I looked at it. It was like, damn, that's like motivation for me to make sure that I come back next year and bring that winning physique.
Absolutely, absolutely. Do you think you're going to pick a shot? Well, you mentioned that you've got something picked out. Is it earlier in the season, or are you someone that would rather compete later in the season and then maintain to be able to get into the Olympia?
Well, I'm not going to go quite as early as I did this year, like this, because like I did the New York Pro, which is in May, and then Toronto beginning of
Yeah,
June. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer to do a show, like not quite till fall, but definitely like sometime in the summer. I'm gonna do a show. I'm gonna pick the show for the summer. So that's kind of like where my eyes are set right now is aiming for the summertime. So that's what I feel like the best bet is for me because then it gives my body So a little bit of time to recover and then like continue into the Olympia.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I know that some guys like the strategy of being able to qualify early and then be able to chill out for the rest of the year or half the year, whatever. Or some guys like to be able to just hit it even a few weeks before the show and then be able to walk right into it because you're still in shape, right? So that yeah, it's different strokes for different folks. Is it just the one show that you're thinking, or if you don't end up getting the qualification, would you look at another one?
Of course, yeah. Like right now, it's just I just have that one show in mind because I like to kind of just focus on that and then not think of a backup plan. But if it came down to it that I didn't end up winning, then I would definitely I would definitely continue and do another show. Probably pick a show a week or two later and just like kind of continue from there to make sure that I get that qualification. But I'm pretty confident that the first show I'll do, I'll be able to win.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can think of a couple of shows where I'd like to see you personally. I'd like to see you go and do the Detroit Pro Fuad show coming up this year. I've heard of a couple of guys that are planning to go and do it, and from what they're saying, that's going to be not just like the show's going to be cool, but Fuad's like really looking after guys, like having like drives back and forth from the hotel and shit like that. Like I think that's going to be a pretty cool one to go and do, right? That'd be something.
That one definitely would be. It's just the timing of it is a bit early for me. So like I want to make sure that like just the way I think about it with like for myself and like when I'm really gonna ramp things up and get into it. So it's definitely one that I saw like kind of posted about, but I believe it's like early April.
Yeah,
I
it
think
is. Yeah.
yeah, so that's the only thing for me. I'm just like it's a bit early. I definitely think it's going to be a great show though, because like with Fuad running it and like him understanding kind of like the needs of a bodybuilder and kind of like giving that appreciation where like some of the other shows are not necessarily like not appreciating the athletes, but like I feel like when it's a person who's been there, done that, that's running it, they kind of like have a different appreciation for those people competing than someone who's just, they're a promoter, but they've never really been in that position of being that athlete doing the show. So I think it's going to be a great show. I think it's going to be like really, really amazing. I definitely, if he has it again the following year, for sure, I would like to do it. And I did contemplate it, but I was just like, I want to make sure that I don't, rush into like competing again. I want to make sure that I'm like, everything's ready, body, mind, everything is just like ready 100% to bring my best because I don't just want to show up.
And you're going to be ready this year, like body, mind. You're in the best shape that you've ever been in. You're in the best mindset that you feel you've ever been in. So this is going to be the year that you really think you're going to get your qualification.
Yep. No, I definitely feel that, man. Like it's it's one of those things where you're like, it's coming and you're just like you're just embracing the process because, a lot of people, they kind of sell themselves short. And I think that's something that's kind of held me back in previous years, just selling myself short mentally. And so like even now it's like every day, like I have a like a whiteboard where I do cardio. So I already have a countdown for the show I've decided to do. So it's like every day it's like changing the date, kind of acknowledging that first thing in the morning and then doing cardio. So it's definitely a different mindset this year for sure.
And you know what? It's a different playing field now too after going through the 2023 season. Just when it comes to what's being awarded in bodybuilding right now as well, right? The mass, dude. The mass is being awarded more than I've seen in the past number of years. I'll tell you right now. Now, the aesthetics going along with it, but you've been working on the midsection control, so that's going to go hand in hand. But I mean, look at guys like look at Crizzo, look at Sampson, look at Rubio Mosquera, who's just coming on the scene. It's that mass, and when you have the majority of guys showing up with that amount of mass, the comparison between people with those aspects, right, with those features, I think it can only play in your favor in that way as well. So that's one of the things that I was really looking forward to, when it came to you getting up on stage with some of these top guys. It's like when it comes to mass, I was like, this guy's got it, like can hang with anybody. So this really, really could be not just the fact that you're in the right place to do it, but the playing field could be very well in your favor for 2024. So this is something you could really capitalize on.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And I've kind of sit back and been able to watch and see how those, shows later in the year have gone with, who they're picking to win, what the physique looks like, and so on. And no, I definitely feel like, especially with the improvements with the presentation and my midsection, and still being able to come in and compete at like over 270 pounds. Yeah, like I can hang with anybody when it comes to the size aspect, and with that increase, like control there with the midsection, improving that. It's I definitely think I can hang with pretty much like most anybody except for maybe like I don't know like one of the top few guys at the Olympia, but with the exception of a few guys, I think like I could pretty much hang with like most of the guys out there right now.
Yeah, well, every one of them guys had to pay their dues and they had to come up too, right? But I mean, when it comes to size, man, you're really not far off from the top guys either, right? So I mean, that's got to be really exciting for you.
What is like it's on my mind every day right now. So that's one thing that's different than previous years where it's like I was kind of like not really thinking about it as much until I was getting closer to prep. But right now it's like literally every day, like I know how much time I have until the next show, and it just kind of like resets every day where you're like, okay, like every single day counts now. Like regardless if I'm like technically in prep or not, I'm still like, every day I'm in the gym, every, day when it comes to my food, everything, like trying to get the amount of sleep, everything, like, I'm making sure I cross all those T's and dot all those I's. So that way when I do, get up there, I know I gave it everything and no excuses, and it'll show.
Yeah, you're taking the off season just as serious as you would any contest prep.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even that Domino's pizza that you had the other night.
Well, I do have cheat meals in my plan, so that's allowed.
How many cheats? How many cheats are you giving yourself right now?
I usually have one, like if I have a cheat meal like that, it's like once a week max. But
Yeah, yeah,
like if
yeah.
I have stuff that's like, like I'll have like basically like it's kind of like, the same as like a like chicken and rice, but you just get like almost like Chipotle or something like that. I'll have stuff like that. But usually like an actual junk food cheat, like max once a week. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not an
Now,
everyday thing. Yeah.
no, no, no. You guys can head over to Joe's channel, and I'll put the link in the description below as well. You recently did a full day of eating video. You've got a lot of videos going up on a lot of informative topics in bodybuilding, everything from supplementation to mindset, and it's raw. It's very, very informative, and I really enjoy your videos actually.
No, I appreciate that, man. I know I think I just hit like 4K subscribers today, but like it's something where it's just like, I've had people be like, wow, I feel like you should have more followers, this and that. And I'm just like, you know what? Like I just like the fact that there's people that like reach out to me and that they appreciate what I'm posting and they're getting stuff out of it, even if it's just a handful of people that are really getting a benefit, then that's kind of what I'm doing it for. It's like, you slowly build up from like people kind of recognizing that. And I know it just takes time, but I want to be able to post stuff that people actually really benefit from, not the fluffy stuff. Like just like, people want to hear about when it comes to like, like the drugs aspect, or like, talking about the mindset outside of like, just like me working out, because I feel like me just posting like training videos, for example, is just like very repetitive, and it's kind of like, everybody's seen people train. Like it's not that like crazy to see all the time. Once in a while, sure, but I want to post stuff that people can actually really benefit from. And I feel like, yeah, the mindset and like the supplementation, and then people seeing like the full days of eating. Everybody always loves to see what you're eating. So like things like that, I try and like put more emphasis on, just to give like, people things that will really benefit them when it comes to bodybuilding, and things that like when I was first starting, there really wasn't a lot of information out about, especially on YouTube. So I feel like being able to post stuff like that now for kids that are, in the early 20s, just getting into it, it's really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's one thing. You did not see anybody posting about the drug aspect for a very, very long time. And it's one of the most important aspects to get right from a health perspective, right? So, guys like you being able to put out that information and then people knowing that they can even hire you in order to help with that, that's something that is of extreme, extreme benefit. Absolutely. But when it comes to the content that you want to put out, I understand what you mean when you're talking about, like, I don't just want to post my workout videos. That stuff is cool. And like I said, posting yourself being able to do 6.5 plates on RDLs is awesome, right? But even myself, I find that since I started this channel, like I started my channel in order to, I've said it a million times now, I needed to talk bodybuilding and I didn't have an outlet. So my content that I put out there is my opinion on certain athletes or certain competitions or whatever in bodybuilding, but it's also asking the questions in order to have those conversations that I was severely lacking because, like, the same reason why Morgan moved up to Pure Muscle in order to do what he does, right? Dude, there's no bodybuilding here. And like, I'm in Cape Breton, right?
Yeah.
Pro bodybuilding doesn't exist, right? I life is busy, so I don't even go to a regular gym anymore. I train at home, right? So I'm even that much more isolated. There's no one to shoot the shit with in the gym about what's going on. So being able to do this and talk with guys like you and other pros I've talked to, other YouTubers, I'm actually enjoying more lately being able to do these podcasts. I shouldn't say more, but as much as doing the news videos, right? So it's a really really good it's a really good opportunity to be able to put out different content that I enjoy, that listeners can get something out of, and everybody wins.
No, exactly. And like that's why like anytime I have an opportunity to do like something like this, like a podcast, like I'm always open to it because I think it's good for, people to be able to kind of see like whether it's a different side of like someone's life or the athlete, or kind of hear them talk about like, things other than just like, oh, like they're eating and the training. It's like they're talking about the mindset, like stoicism and things other than that, that like kind of impact like their whole life in general, and kind of learning, different things about the individual, and not just like, seeing them on stage and seeing what they look like. They kind of get like more of a background on the person. And I think it's good. Like it's good for people to kind of learn those things and get like more of an insight into like, what it takes, not just like in the gym and, in the kitchen, but kind of just like mentally and, spiritually as well.
Yeah, when I had Robin on there, he was the first pro I had on my channel. Me and him had a whole conversation. The whole podcast was just on meditation and mindset and being able to apply that to every set as you approach it. Every rep. It's a really really interesting perspective that he has. And actually, I'd still like to get you and him on a podcast together to be able to discuss that stuff, because from where he approaches training and from where you approach training and just mindset in general, I think that'd be something awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like anytime you can get us both on them, I'm down. I'm
Yeah.
definitely
Oh
down.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Now we'll get him. Because when I was last talking to him, there was things that I learned from him that I started putting into my own training. So I've got to update him and bounce a couple things off him too. So we'll make something happen here. It'll be hopefully soon, actually, before things really ramp up and you guys get into prep mode, because I know that he's another guy that's going to be prepping this year. So that was one other thing too. The fact that you guys were able to compete against each other and you guys were so comparable, that was something that was really cool for New York and for Toronto too, because he was fourth at Toronto and you ended up taking fifth, but you actually placed ahead of him in New York. I think he was seventh, right?
Yep. Yeah, like I
Yeah.
definitely think we sort of switched in the sense of I definitely peaked a lot better for New York, and I think he peaked a lot better for Toronto. So I think we kind of swapped in that sense with the placings on those, which is, it's cool. It's cool to be able to, you're competing against guys like I've known Robin for a long time, especially like competing and everything. So like we've gone, I think we've competed together a few times over the years, and you know, it's always cool to go back and forth with guys. Like it can always happen, because that's the thing about bodybuilding is anything can happen on a day. When it comes to your physique looking a certain way, it's like you could be going into the show and people are like, oh, he'll definitely beat this guy, or this guy will beat this guy. But like, hey, if someone shows up off, anybody can, step up. And that's kind of same thing like with Toronto. It's like I was off and he was on, and he got rewarded for that. So
Yeah, no, it was good comparisons, man. That's for sure, and that's one of the people don't realize. I think people are going to start realizing after this year. Canada's on its way up, man. Like there's a lot of really good Canadian bodybuilders that are coming down the pipe right now. Yourself, Robin. I mean, well, Hassan Mustafa is not from here, but he's out of Canada now. Morgan. It's really starting to come through when it comes to the Canadian bodybuilding scene, and that's something we haven't seen in quite some time. So that's going to be exciting for me too.
Yeah, no, it is exciting to see more guys, coming up in Canada. And then there's another guy that just turned pro, actually this year. He's a French Canadian guy. His name's Justin. I forget his last name, but he's a tall guy. He's like Morgan. He's a tall guy, but like I think he's gonna be
Oh
one
yeah,
to watch too, coming up in the next like couple years because he's really blown up over the past like couple years. Like put on a ton of size, and I feel like he's gonna be one of those big big mass monsters, but still has a pretty good shape to him. So I think he's gonna be another one coming up that's gonna be one to watch for sure.
yeah. No, it's gonna be a good year for Canada when it comes to bodybuilding, man. That's for sure. But listen, I think I'm going to call it there. Again, well, one thing I want to make sure that you can do is, do you have anything that you want to plug when it comes to your coaching or sponsors or anything like that? Oh God, I'm not losing you right at the end, am I?
Uh, for sure, yeah. Like if anybody wants to reach out, I think it just froze. I think we're good.
Yeah, you did. You're
Yeah, I
back.
think we're good.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, okay, perfect. Yeah, like if anybody wants to reach out to me for coaching, they can get in touch with me through Instagram. My Instagram is just Coach Little Joe, very simple. And then I also have email. They can email me at Joe Seeman 1992 at gmail.com. So like either way of those, whether it's email or DM, they can get in contact me for coaching. Currently don't really have any sponsors or plugs, so yeah, don't need to worry about that. But yeah, for coaching for sure, they can reach out anytime.
Right on, man. Well, listen, thanks again, Joe, for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation, man. And like I said, we'll get you back on a little bit later in the season. We'll get through the holidays and all that fun shit. But again, I'll put everything in the description below so people can find you. And yeah, thanks again, man, for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Well, of course, I'm happy to come on, and I'm looking forward to coming on again in the near future.
Awesome, man. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Bodybuilding Breakdown. Catch you guys next time.